Rachel Carter had lived in Redstone Ridge her entire life, building a reputation as a sharp-eyed tracker, a quick learner, and one of the toughest riders in the territory. But toughness had never hardened her heart. That was the part the town never understood. She believed a human life, any life, was sacred, whether it belonged to a farmer, a cowboy, or an Apache warrior. And everything changed the morning she found a badly injured young Apache scout collapsed near the riverbed, an arrow lodged deep in his thigh, and fever rising off him like steam. She recognized the arrowhead. Instantly, she had seen similar ones on the gear of Redstone's own self-appointed vigilante group, a handful of ranchers who patrolled the hills, claiming they were protecting the town. Rachel knew if she left the boy there, he would die, and if she brought him into town, the men who shot him would kill him before he made it 3 feet. So she did the only thing her conscience allowed. She carried him to her barn, tore up her own bedding for bandages, boiled water, and spent the night fighting to keep the fever from claiming him. But word travels fast in small towns, especially when whispers sharpen into accusations. When the vigilantes discovered their missing target had been saved, they stormed to Rachel's doorstep at sunrise, yelling that she was a traitor, a sympathizer, a disgrace to Redstone Ridge. She stood her ground, staring at the faces she had grown up around, now twisted with suspicion and anger. They accused her of aiding the enemy, of bringing danger to the settlement, of choosing an Apache over her own people. They demanded she hand over the boy. Rachel refused, voice shaking but steady. "He's a human being. He's hurt, and I won't let you murder him." That was all it took. By afternoon, the town council called an emergency gathering. The mayor, who hadn't even asked for her side of the story, declared that Rachel's actions endangered the community and stripped her of her role as Redstone Ridge's tracker. They ordered her out of town borders for 1 full season. She was stunned, exiled for saving someone's life. But the decision was final. She rode out with nothing but a small pack, the clothes on her back, and her horse, Duststorm, who seemed to sense her heartbreak with every slow step. She made her camp miles away, deep in the desert, not knowing whether the Apache boy would survive without her. Only the empty wind answered her questions. But that night, as the flames of her lonely campfire flickered, Rachel sensed she was not alone. The desert around her felt alive, watching, listening, and what she didn't know was that her act of compassion had been witnessed, carried on the wind, whispered through the canyon walls, and heard by ears she never imagined. Before dawn, the desert would tremble, and Rachel Carter, cast out, humiliated, rejected, was about to wake into a destiny far greater than the small minds that expelled her. Redstone Ridge had turned its back on her, but a nation on horseback was riding toward her with thunder in its hooves and honor in its hearts, and nothing would ever be the same. Rachel awoke to a strange silence, a silence so profound that even the morning wind seemed to hold its breath. She stepped out of her tent, pulling her jacket tight around her shoulders. But the moment she looked toward the horizon, she froze. In the golden light of dawn, stretching across the desert plain like an ocean of shadows and bronze, stood a massive formation of riders, silent, unmoving, and countless. Her breath caught. They were Apache, warriors draped in ceremonial leather, feathers glinting in the sunlight, each sitting tall upon their horses with the poise of living legends. They came not in a scattered group, but in a perfectly disciplined formation, an honor guard, a company, a regiment. At least 100 of them. They moved forward slowly, hooves thudding against the earth in synchronized rhythm, forming a wide circle around her camp, until she stood at the center like a lone stone in a sacred ring. Duststorm shifted nervously beside her, ears twitching. Rachel placed a calming hand on his neck, though she herself was shaking. Then the circle parted. A tall, commanding figure rode forward, a chief whose presence alone could quiet thunder. Behind him rode the young scout she had saved, alive, bandaged, and with gratitude burning bright in his eyes. The chief dismounted with graceful authority and approached her. The warriors behind him lowered their heads, not in threat, but in respect. "Rachel Carter," the chief said, his voice deep as canyon stone. "Word of your courage reached our people before the sun set. You saved my son." Rachel's eyes widened. She hadn't known. She had only acted on instinct and compassion. "If I had not found him, he would have." "You did," the chief interrupted gently. "You honored life when others chose hate, and for that you have earned something very few ever receive." He raised his hand. 100 Apache warriors dismounted as one. Then, as the sun rose behind them, painting the desert gold, they lowered themselves to one knee. 100 warriors, 100 horses, 100 heads bowed before a woman cast out by her own people. Rachel felt her throat tighten, overwhelmed by the gravity of the moment. She had lost everything the day before: her reputation, her position, her home. And yet here she was now, standing before a vision so humbling, so profound. It felt like the desert itself was honoring her. The chief stepped closer and placed a beautifully carved talisman in her palm, a symbol of protection, trust and gratitude. "From this day," he said, "you are a friend of our nation, and if ever you call, we will come." Rachel swallowed hard. I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," the chief replied. "Just know that true honor is not given by towns or councils. It is earned by the heart." As the warriors rose and mounted their horses, Rachel felt a strength she had never known settle inside her. She wasn't cast out. She was chosen, and someday the people who expelled her would learn exactly who they had turned away. The Apache began to ride off, returning to the horizon in a majestic river of motion. But before disappearing, the chief called back, "Rachel Carter, the world will remember what you did." And as the silence returned to the desert, Rachel looked down at the talisman and whispered to herself, "Let them." Viewers, if you enjoyed this powerful story and want more emotional Western legends, twists, mysteries and tales of courage like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel right now. Your support keeps these stories alive.